Would you want someone like KD, Kevin Durant, on your team? A sharpshooter, someone who closes, but is toxic for your culture? If we can start with Steve.
Yeah, so I mean, as a Suns fan, right? Like, we definitely want KD. We want to hire him as for a mercenary, right? But KD, is not the kind of person you want on your team if you've got a business. They're going to come and they're going to close deals, and the short term is going to be awesome because they're closing deals, but in the long term, they're going to hurt your company culture. You're going to have higher turnover. People aren't going to feel listened to. They're not going to feel heard. You're going to have people leaving or not working as hard because you got one guy who's always playing hero ball and upsetting the fellow team members and maybe, overpromising the sellers, causing cancellations, causing a bad reputation for your company. So for our sales team, we do not want someone like KD who is toxic to the team culture.
RJ.
I absolutely want Kevin Durant, and going to that specific example of him as a player, you can see Golden State Warriors were able to win championships with having Kevin Durant on the team. It's the Brooklyn Nets' fault why this turned into a toxic culture, and they weren't, because of lack of leadership. So for me, I'm putting myself on the hot seat and saying it's my job to make sure that the company culture doesn't become toxic because of KD. So in that circumstance, I absolutely want one of the best players in existence to be on my team. And it's my job to set the company culture, to make sure that I have proper leadership and don't allow him to become toxic to the rest of the team, just like they did in Golden State, and just like no one else has been able to do with him on their team. So kudos to Steve Kerr and all of them, but yeah, I want them on. I want KD on.
We need
team.
more buzzers.
It's CJ.
Not loud enough.
All right, listen, I'm taking KD 365 days a year to be on my team. All right, I think it's leadership hands down, and it comes down to coaching at the end of the day. All right, greatness needs great coaching. All right, and so I think that's all that Kevin Durant has really truly been missing. He had that opportunity with Steve Kerr. I think the other thing that was great that we saw with Golden State, and this is an analogy to really using your own businesses at the end of the day and how you manage talent, great talent at that. Steve Kerr or Steph Curry knew how to take a back seat. That's called power. Power is being able to move somebody from point A to point B without them knowing that you moved them. And Steph Curry visibly took a back seat for Kevin Durant. It resulted in a championship. I just think it needs proper management. He regrets, I'm sure, leaving Golden State. If you got talent on your team, you got to nurture, manage that talent, know who you're dealing with, and make sure you make effective decisions.
Leon.
Hell yes, I'm taking Kevin Durant. I mean, you're talking about arguably a top 10 player of all time. I would argue that him being toxic has everything to do with the organization, very similar to what RJ and CJ said. All-star talent, Hall of Fame talent needs Hall of Fame leadership. That is a coaching and a leadership problem. Culture each strategy and competition all day, but the reality is you've got to make sure that you give him an environment that he keeps rising up. You think Kobe Bryant, you wouldn't take Kobe Bryant on your team? He was arguably toxic to his team, but you would take him. Figure out a way to make that Hall of Fame talent work within your culture by being a better leader.
So you guys have never had like a good player or a good team or a good team member that was able to produce results but was toxic to the team? I mean,
yeah, but they weren't a Hall of Famer, Steve.
Right.
That guy's a Hall of Famer, a top 10 all-time talent. If you would have said someone else, a lesser player on there, we would have said no, you kick him out.
Right.
But you said KD.
But we get players, right? We get team members that can close deals. We get team members that are good, right? We talk like Mavericks, right, on the profile, on the PI profile, and these guys are upsetting team members, right? They're not doing what needs to be done, right? As far as putting in notes, responding to the administrative team, not working with Dispo, not working with TC, right? They're divas. And if they're upsetting the team culture everywhere they've been, right? He couldn't play with James Harden and Russell Westbrook, right? He couldn't stay with Draymond Green because he was beefing with Draymond Green. He couldn't work again with James Harden and Kyrie in Brooklyn. Like, at some point, the problem is the guy and not the teams.
What was the problem, KD, or was it Kyrie? And the other thing is going back to the business analogy here. I think all of us are saying we want our opportunity to be able to lead that player, showcase our ability.
But let's say you do it. So I guess the context here, right? If you're leading him and he still isn't working within the team structure, within the confines of the team, would you keep him?
I don't think we've seen where he isn't working within a team structure, though. I think what we've seen is he's not happy with the work of the team that he chose himself around him, and that's why I say leadership. If he had proper leadership,
Well, so let's talk
proper
about
coaching.
in your sales organization, right? You got a guy that's closing 50% of his appointments, right? He's producing, but everyone in your company hates working with him, and you've had multiple meetings with him. Do you keep that guy?
Yeah, I would keep that guy for sure, and I'd figure out a way to work with him. And how I would probably look at doing that is how can I increase what his take is? All right, because it's always going to come down to money at the end of the day. How can I figure out how to help increase his take, and how do I lead him better to whatever his back end goal is? Somebody that works at that type of level, somebody that puts in that type of work to be that good at what they do, to have a 50% close ratio, they are looking for something greater than base level. And you have to figure out how to help identify what that is and either partner with them in that opportunity if they're that good of a closer, right? And then retain that talent, because if not, they leave Golden State, they end up in Brooklyn. Grass isn't always green on the other side. Now we're talking about a trade back.
The key question is here that we haven't answered is, does he fit the core values? If he or she hits the core values, you keep them. If they do not, you can find another producer. If they do not fit your core values, simple as that.
Wow, guys, that was really interesting. Good takes. For the first time ever, we have a tie, and it was with Leon and RJ, correct? Yeah, Leon and RJ.
Half a point. I'm in.
I don't know if we
zero.
do half
On the
points.
board.
That's zero for
Manny,
everybody.
can we do
On the
half
board.
points here?
Half a point. I'm on the board, boys.
That's zero for everybody.
Let's go.
We'll do a tiebreaker at the end.
Leon is already better than Eric.
All right, Eric's off.
It's already been
Sorry,
replaced.
E-money's gone.
All right, moving on to the next topic.